What's up, everyone? I'm Nick Campo. This is Treva and Melissa, and here we are talking about building wealth through real estate. We're the Loan Guys podcast. Before we get started, go ahead and bang the red subscribe button and follow us on all of our social media, MBI Financial Group, LLC. You can find me at MTG Man Nick, Mortgage Man Nick on all my social media. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves. Melissa, you can go first.
Good morning. Happy Monday. Melissa Gray here, Keller Williams Real Estate, and a member of the CEOs of Real Estate.
CEO. And who are you?
Treva Hicks.
Treva Hicks.
Been in real estate for 21 years at Keller Williams Connected.
Awesome, awesome. Do me a favor, guys. Try to be within like a fist of the microphone.
Okay.
That way Mike can hear us. So, CEOs, where'd that come from? How'd you get that
Chat GPT.
Chat GPT, really?
Just trying to be creative.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. That's why I was asking. That's like super creative. So how many people on the team?
Just us two, and really just a partnership to put ourselves out there on social media and grow following, and yeah.
I'm kind of nervous to have y'all.
No, why are you nervous?
The notes.
The notes.
Yeah, so Friday, they beat me up a little bit on Friday in a good way because it was very informational for everybody who's watching. 100 questions they had about for first-time investors. Like
We have 105, so.
That you win. So you win. That's awesome. Let's get started. What do you got for me?
Let's do it.
Get in there.
Just kidding. Really, this is more for us to
Awesome.
stay on track, but. Yeah, Treva's been in the business a long time. She's a great resource for me. I'm a little newer to the business, about 4 years in. And yeah, we're just about building wealth in real estate in North and South Carolina and working with investors, residential. Treva's done some commercial, so we know a little bit about it all.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we there's many different ways to build wealth through real estate. You can get into mortgage like we did, real estate agents like y'all, investment properties. We have people who have done mobile home parks, like all kinds of stuff, commercial real estate. Treva, how much commercial have you done?
I've done a couple of restaurants.
Cool.
Some commercial land.
Nice.
It just really started like going into that market in the last couple of years.
It's kind of opened up a little bit commercial. We started lending on commercial over the past couple of years as well. Prior to that, I think because of the inventory, the housing inventory, as you guys are probably well aware, is tight on residential. So it just seems like there's more opportunity on commercial, and we kind of naturally went into it. Do you like commercial or residential better?
I mean, I would say I'm an expert at residential, so I'm more comfortable in that area. Not an expert at commercial yet.
Okay.
I do know that inventory for commercial property is going to increase because of the shorter loan terms, like every 5 to 10 years. So when the loan comes due, they may not be able to afford it at the higher interest rates.
Right.
So there'll be more turnover in the commercial.
Over the next 12 to 24 months, because everything that closed in 2020, 21, and 22 with those low interest rates, now they have those balloon payments. They have to pay it back. And then a lot of times what they'll do is they'll refinance into another 5 to 7 year balloon type mortgage, or they'll try to get a 30-year financing or something along those lines on it. But you're qualifying at double the interest rate. So a lot of the people who bought those commercial deals, they say there's a commercial bubble that might pop here soon. We'll see. Time will tell. Were you around in 2008 doing this?
I was.
How was that?
It was a rough time. I would say a lot more difficult than what we're facing now.
Right. Agreed. I got in 2011, so we were coming out of it, but interest rates were still like 6.5% at that point, and people weren't buying. It was really hard to find jobs. I think that this market's weird though. People want to buy. There's just no houses available.
Right.
So it takes a lot longer to get under contract than it typically would.
Yeah.
So, Melissa, how long have you been in real estate?
Going on 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So I always ask every realtor, when you first got in, What's the craziest thing that you weren't expecting? A lot of people are like, oh, well, I got my real estate license. I was expecting to just, go sell houses or be a listing agent. What was different upon getting into real estate for you than what you were expecting?
Sure. So I'm coming from a healthcare background. I was a nurse for 13 years ahead of real estate. So for me, like the relationship part, the actual real estate part was fun and easy. It was starting an own business, being an independent contractor, creating an LLC and really learning the business management side of things, finances, and just being responsible for that, and marketing was all and still is a learning curve for me. So, I can sell you a house all day long, but then I have to manage my own, back end of that. So that was probably the most difficult part for me, was just appreciating the business side. But, on the offset of that, like it's allowed me to have so much growth in that area and appreciating what running a business looks like, and really admiration for anyone who's an independent contractor and doing things on their own. So I would say that's probably was the biggest challenge for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any suggestions when it comes to marketing for people, what they should do when they first are getting started?
Yeah, follow all the people that are doing it better than you and have been in the business for longer than you.
Right.
Like we're all here to learn from everyone, and most people are really open to sharing their secrets and the secret sauce to social media. I'd say, for me, social media is where it's at right now. And, putting your face out there, showing your value through social media is really what's going to resonate with, you can get in front of millions of people in, 5 minutes. So why not take advantage of that? So
absolutely. I have a saying that every company is a media company first, and then whatever they do second. So when we started MBI Financial Group, we're going on year 3 now. I said to Ben, the co-founder of our company, I was like, we need to start a podcast, we need to get on social media, and we need to make sure people are seeing us, they're in front of us. And one of the things that we try not to do is we try not to sell too hard on the podcast and such. We want to be more informational, right? So like the whole thing about the podcast is we update people on what's going on in the current market, because a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on news channels and mainstream media, it's not 100% accurate. And it's hard to be when you have like 3 to 5 minute segments and you have to dive into the inner workings of what's happening in mortgage, real estate, with the housing market, commercial, it's more complicated than 5 minutes. So you're not getting a clear picture of it. So I was like, let's do something that's going to be between an hour and 2 hours a week, where we update people on what Jerome Powell means when he says inflation isn't cooling, or interest rates, or whatever it is, right? So that's kind of how we started, and we have probably picked up. One of the things I found with the podcast and social media, it's not like our main form of prospecting, but we've probably picked up 15 to 20 deals in a 2-year period off of it, which is awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's and a lot of the people who work with us now saw the podcast first, and I'm very open and honest about what our mentality is here as a company and what we're looking for. So they were like, hey, we want to be a part of that. They connected with it and they wanted to be a part of it. Ron, who's actually, he does our Processor 1 role, which is essentially an underwriting role in every pre-approval that comes in. He's training a new employee now, but Ron was, we've known each other, but he saw the podcast, social media, and he was like, hey, I want to be a part of you guys. So
I love that. It's showing forward thinking and, being one step ahead of the game. So
well, it's my favorite thing to do with the business too.
I love the personality part, to be honest with you. All the different people that we get to talk to.
Yes.
I mean, you get to hear like a couple of hilarious things. What dude has park narcs?
Get you two.
Get you two.
Get you two park narcs. The mobile home guy.
Yes.
Tom O'Neill.
Mike was telling us.
Do you guys know
story.
Tom O'Neill?
Yes.
Yeah. So Tom was our first guest. So this is recent where we've had guests.
Okay.
And so Tom and his group of investors have bought a few mobile home parks, and one person burnt down another person's mobile home, and there's park narcs, and you have to get one on each side of the mobile home park. That way, because there's factions, right? So that side might be trying to set that side up. So if you have 2 park narcs, you can kind of decipher the story. I think it'd be better to get 3. Shout out, Tom, for the park narcs. What was the one? Friday. Never let a crackhead out hustle you. You never see a crackhead go without crack. So
right?
Right. So if a crackhead can always get crack, then we should be able to get business.
Yep.
Shout out to Matt.
He's going to find it
100%.
No matter what. So yeah, shout out Monty.
It sounds like a reality show, like
It
Park
is.
Wars, you know?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you, Mike. I 100% love coming on the podcast talking about people. I love, the other piece I like too is there's a lot of information. There's just so many parts to real estate that that you can build wealth through. Like we have a company, me, him, Ben, and another friend of ours. I don't say his name just because I don't know if he wants me to say his name on here, but sorry, I had a zip tie in my hand. We buy dilapidated we buy dilapidated properties and fix them up and then rent them out as room rentals. So like if it has like 2 to 3 rooms, we'll get them. We'll make them 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and there's like a common area kitchen, obviously, laundry room, and then we'll rent them out, short-term rentals, but it has to be at least 4 weeks. We're looking for like traveling nurses and people who work. So Ben and I actually started that, and we have one in Texas. We kind of assumed a mortgage, and then we have one in Kannapolis that Mike, myself, and Ben and our fourth partner are working now. But that's our thing. But everybody has their thing. So do you guys work with a lot of investors?
I have, yes.
So what's the most interesting form of real estate investment that you've seen?
Interesting for him?
Or different, or maybe it's not just, hey, I'm buying a house to rent it out.
I mean, helping an individual, I don't want to say it's interesting or different, but just helping an individual like build a real estate portfolio of investment properties that brings in enough income that allows them to retire.
That's really cool.
Early. But it is mostly like rental properties, not flipping.
Right.
Just buy and hold.
So when you have a client come to you that's like, hey, I want to start a portfolio, maybe they don't have one yet, or they don't really have a vision. What would your first steps when you talk to them? What are the first steps you tell them that they need to do?
I mean, like they need to know like what they can afford.
Right.
They need to make sure their finances are in order. They need to find out what type of property they want to invest in, where they want to invest their money. I mean, there's a lot of things that you go through, but I would say first and foremost, like where do you want to invest and what type of property do you want to invest in?
What about you, Melissa?
Lots of questions. Like, what are your goals? What's your experience? And then let's build on that. So there's a million ways to build wealth in real estate. Like I just did the Spartan 5K up in Concord.
Yes, that's really cool.
It was a blast, but I pull up and there's like this mansion in the middle of like 200 acres, and I'm like, genius. This person lives in their mansion and leases their land for, the Spartan, and I'm sure potentially a ton of other races, and then they're
probably
you're thinking
how many
100,000 people did that race, and they're netting that profits while they sit pretty in their big mansion in Concord. And so that's a great example of you can lease your land for your benefit.
That's really cool.
So that was kind of eye-opening for me. Like
that's different.
We're not thinking about all of the ways. Yeah, you can lease land, you can lease commercial. I was just talking to Treva in light of the Masters that just happened. Like, have you heard of the Augusta rule?
Mm-mm.
So it's a tax benefit. You can rent your property anywhere in the U.S. for up to 14 days, and you don't have to claim it on your taxes.
Oh, wow.
And that's in light of people renting their homes for around the Masters.
Right.
And then, it became a tax benefit to not have to write that off.
That's
so
really cool.
As long as you don't operate your business in your home, you can rent your house up to 14 days for the going rate. Like, you can't say, I'm going to lease it for $20,000 a day, but whatever the going rate is in your property, and you don't have to claim that.
That's really cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So, not a lot of people know about that, but we have the Wells Fargo coming up. I live in South Charlotte. If I didn't work out in my home, I could totally take advantage of that benefit, but I'm telling everyone.
Right.
Like, rent your home out. Put it on, Airbnb, put it on Facebook Marketplace, and, rent it out and make a little profit and go have go on a cruise.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's the value of a realtor. You guys work in this every day, and you talk to more people than anybody else in the world when it comes to, hey, I want to invest, right? Maybe financial advisors talk to, but when it comes to investing in real estate, they aren't talking to as many people as y'all do. Like, that is a great idea, which made me think of, I have a friend of mine who their group of investors buys farms, and then they turn those farms back into the natural lands, because people don't realize a lot of times on farms there's dams and stuff because it was wetland before or whatever. And then they take that money and they they get credits for the natural lands, and then they sell the credits to the home developers who are building these big developments in different areas, because they have to have a certain amount of credits. So they make the money off the credits, and then on top of that, it's 600 acres, so they're leasing it to a cattle rancher. So not only are they making money off the investment, but they're making money off leasing of the land too.
Yeah.
And they host events and stuff. They have like a skeet shooting course out there, so they'll host events and do things of that nature, and just get other forms of income coming in. And it's just, there's a million different ways to do it.
What about the guy that was buying all the right-of-ways to all the land? He would just buy a strip, and you couldn't access the land unless he charged you.
Needed him, right?
I know somebody that's done that. That's
Right,
bought
they
a
make
strip
so
of
much
land,
money.
like if they wanted to come in and put a gas station, because there's certain places that
Right.
you have to have 2 different entrance,
Right.
or it can't be right off of a main road. And so if somebody was to come in there and put a gas station in, like, they would have to buy that strip of land that he purchased
It's crazy.
in order to put the entrance in.
Well, and they will pay astronomical amount of money. So, like the guy that Mike was talking about, it would be like you have to have a certain amount of entrances for a development. Well, he saw in advance, like, oh, I think they're going to plan on putting a development here because this area is growing or whatever. So he would go in and buy, like, literally that little piece of land that stopped them from getting access. So he would buy it for like $7,000, and he was selling them for like $170,000, $200,000 per strip. He did that with like 30 or 40 strips over the past 10 years, and just absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, genius.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Oh yeah. It's I actually found him on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, but found
he
him on
from?
there. He
Curious.
Midwest.
Okay.
Midwest. So, and I messaged him. I was like, dude, like, come on the podcast. That's just super interesting.
It really is. I mean,
That is,
that's an opportunity that
Right.
not many people are taking advantage of, but I have heard of it locally with
Right.
one individual. Yeah.
How do you even think of that? Like, where does that idea come from?
I don't.
Genius.
I mean, they bought it. I know that he bought this particular piece of property at a tax sale.
Wow.
And so he paid nothing for it.
That's unbelievable.
And,
How do you find it, though? How do you find that land?
Like, what makes you say, hey, I'm going to look for a strip of land?
Yeah, I'm gonna buy that quarter of an acre right there and make a few million off of it.
Well, now, because of this podcast, it's going to get huge.
Right.
Like, everyone's
Go to
going to
tax
Right.
sales.
Right.
Well, and I think just that's one of our values is it's our job to be heads up on zoning and, zoning laws and what's coming. And so staying on the forefront of that and knowing where that growth area is going to be, and then looking for opportunities around that.
Right.
So now I'm intrigued to let me go look for some lots around
Right.
what's for sale that's in an area that's, going to boom in the next, 2 to 5 years.
Chester.
And, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Chester.
Chester's about to
Or
explode.
you go to like a tax sale
Right.
where there's delinquent taxes,
Mhm.
and you buy the land, and if the individual that owns it doesn't catch up with the taxes within like a year, then you own it outright. I know a lot
You
of
can
people
pay
that
the
have bought,
taxes,
you just-
and then you become
so
the
people that are back on taxes, and that sale's normally in November.
So, okay, I don't know how this works at all, so this is great. I love this. So you go to a tax sale, somebody owns land or a property. Can they do it with houses as well?
Mm-hmm.
And how far behind on their taxes are they typically?
Years.
variable. Yeah.
Usually a few years.
So you go, is it like an auction?
Mm-hmm.
So you would bid,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you win the bid, the homeowner or landowner is notified?
And they have an opportunity to pay it back, and they have 12 months.
12 months.
I would say I don't know the percentage on that, but a lot of times it's 50-50 maybe. Like
Right.
a lot of times they don't have the money to get caught up, and so then you get the property for the delinquent taxes.
Okay, so
that price.
when you go to the tax sale, it's so do you have to pay the delinquent taxes plus whatever you bid on it, or is it just the delinquent
You have
taxes?
to pay the delinquent taxes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. That's interesting. So then you would take possession of that property
if they don't
pay in 12 months. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think it's an excellent way to
Agreed.
get property for a super
Agreed.
Cheap
Yeah.
price. I mean, if you only have to pay the delinquent tax amount
Right.
to obtain the property, you don't have to pay like if it's
Right.
you don't have to buy the house or
Right.
pay the like the market value.
Right. I think it's an awesome way to invest. It just makes me kind of hate our government a little bit, though. The fact that you don't technically actually own your land. So it's great for investors, and it's a strategy that Mike's going to probably write down and we'll look at for our properties company that we're doing, because it is a great strategy. But man alive, you can pay a house and say you pay your house in full. There's still taxes on it. If you don't pay it, someone can just come and bid on it, and you have 12 months. So pay your taxes, folks, but also government, stop being so gangster.
Right. It could be a win-win.
HOA is the same way.
They can foreclose on you for not paying.
It can be a
your
win-win
HOA.
that you don't go into foreclosure.
Correct.
And, someone can take that over without
It is a
those
win-win.
penalties. But
Yeah.
I think it's a great way for investors to get a property. I'm not a big tax guy. I don't like taxes. So I'm thinking oh man,
I agree.
Relatable.
we did the whole
Very good.
what happened to us here in America? We did the whole Boston Tea Party thing, and next thing you know, our houses are getting foreclosed on for tax liens, which I knew. I tell every client, I was like, hey, listen, even if you pay this off, because I have a few people who are paying theirs off pretty quickly, make sure you pay your taxes.
Yeah.
HOA as well. You guys mentioned HOA. Are there HOA auctions or no?
They're typically part of like the monthly.
Gotcha.
There's the first Monday of every month. They have auctions at the courthouse. And those are like delinquent loans, people who haven't paid HOA fees. Those happen every month.
Let me know if you hear of any in River Hills. I'll auction on those. I'm trying to buy the whole neighborhood and kick the people I don't like out. So
I like that.
I like her.
I like her.
Mike's first on my list. I'm kidding.
Coming for you,
That's interesting. What other forms? So you mentioned obviously building a portfolio, which is huge. I know a lot of people who do that. I think it's the least risky way. Would you say, like building a long-term portfolio where you hold them?
Yeah, I think it's a long-term game, but there's also, you're building equity. I mean, our area, you're gaining 8 to 10% yearly in equity, so you're building value, along the way. Now,
Right.
you got to either pay a property management company or you manage it yourself, so there's fees, and the upkeep of the property that come along with that. But again, it's a great option for
Agreed.
a long-term game.
So, what would you say the riskiest form of real estate investing is?
Fix and flip can be risky.
I agree with that. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great for people, but it's a business
Yeah,
at that
it's
point.
a business, and you got to have all the people in your corner to be successful at that. Trusted vendors and vendor partners and contractors that are gonna get you to the finish line and not, take advantage of that. And
it's risky because you have to make sure you pull all the right permits.
Correct.
I mean, a lot of people don't do that.
Which is why you have to trust a GC. And a lot of what I've been seeing is there's a lot of first-time fix and flip people. I actually have a couple closings this week, and I've kind of been walking them through it. They're working with, pretty good real estate agent, but they're just new, and there's things that are unforeseen that nobody can predict. Like
Sure.
when I equate it almost to like when you get a mortgage and the appraisal comes in low, like I'm sorry, like I can't even talk to the appraiser. I'm not sure what I was supposed to do, right? So anyways, but when you open up the walls of a house, there's a story behind there. Inspectors don't open the walls. How are they supposed to know? You guys don't know, right? So there's risk there, and could add extra money on. And there's just first-time investors, they want to do all the work themselves, and I'm like, I get it, I do. But you just took one of the riskiest forms of investment because you have to stay within a budget and you really buy your profit. So it comes down to the buy, which you all probably know. And now you want to do all the work yourself on top of it.
And as experts and real estate agents, we can spot that a mile away.
Right.
Go the extra mile to do it properly.
Right.
Yeah.
What if they come to you and they're like, hey, I want to do a fix and flip with no general contractor. I'm just going to do it myself. try to advise them, maybe you should get somebody?
Absolutely.
Yeah, show me your experience. Show
Right.
me
Yeah.
the data to back up that you can,
You know what you're doing.
You know what you're
Right.
doing.
What if they're like, hey, I watched, Chip and Joanna Gaines all
Property
the time.
Brothers.
Property Brothers,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's a hard no.
Hard no.
that's too risky.
do you still sell in the house, or do you say, shy away?
I mean, we sell the house because
Right.
It's in the house,
we're
but-
meeting their goal, but
Right.
we're advising them along the way. Hey, know your numbers up front. Like,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
get all your quotes ahead of time so you know exactly what you're dealing with. Do all your inspections, investigate the property so you know you're going to recoup that money on the back end.
Right.
I mean, we're looking at the repair value as agents, and if there's comps to support that, we can give you a pretty good idea of what you're going to net on the back end, but know those numbers up front. Know what it's going to cost to, do all the updates and upgrades that are going to be required to sell that property at top dollar. And then we can let you know, it's a good investment or not. I mean, we're looking for, we don't want you to spend more than 70% of that repair value to really net a healthy profit. That's kind of the numbers I use when we're talking investing.
I had I'm trying to help a guy who flipped a property and is in it for way too much and is in the short term, like a hard money loan, and has to get out of the hard money loan, but there's not an exit strategy there.
Scary.
Yeah, like, so you're $170,000 into this thing with no exit strategy, and you over improve the house. Like, that's a big place where you need to bring a realtor in, because like,
Yes.
talk a little bit about over improvement. You guys both went, yes. So somebody, Treva maybe, and then Melissa can go.
I mean, that's just very easy to do.
Right.
I mean, you can't go in and I mean, you can use nice, good quality stuff.
Right.
But you can't go in and design it like you would your dream house.
Correct.
Even though that's what your vision might be,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a smart financial.
So explain a little
Investment.
bit what it means to over improve, so that the people who are watching who've never done this before have an understanding of like what we're talking about.
Well, it's going to vary from neighborhood to neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to want to buy a $200,000 house and go in there and put upgraded countertops, like granite
Right.
countertops, like just put all high end stuff in it, lighting. I mean, anything.
Right. So it's you want to upgrade the house so it's comparable with the rest of the neighborhood.
Yes, you want to be comparable.
Yeah, your
But-
end number needs to be comparable to
Right.
other sales in the area. Like, you don't want to buy, like you said, a $200,000 property, put $100,000 into it if the comp support a $275 resell at
Right.
after repair value. So then you've put too much into it, and you've probably looked at it through your lens and
Right.
not a resale lens
Yeah.
and what's going to sell. And now you're in the red.
Agreed.
I
Yeah.
always do that for
Yeah.
investors. Like I do, like an after repair value.
Right.
Like
ARV.
evaluation
Set
on
a budget
anything
and-
Right.
they buy. Like this is what you're looking to resell at if you do the repairs
Mhm.
based on what the market brings in that area.
Right.
This is what you should expect
Right.
to net.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting, like when somebody does put too much money into it, and maybe you have mid-grade countertops, but they put the maybe Italian granite they order in and they put
Italian
it in
marble.
like
Mhm.
right. It doesn't fit that neighborhood, right?
Right.
So what are the issues you run into when you're trying to sell the house at that point? Maybe it's a fix and flipper, maybe it's somebody who lived there and upgraded it to a super high level that is the price point is much higher. What are the issues that y'all run into when trying to get that house sold on the back end?
Yeah, no one wants to buy the most expensive home in the neighborhood.
Right.
So, and if we're trying to recoup all the money that you've put into it with some profit, then, that makes our job really difficult.
Yes.
We can do all the things, but really it comes down to numbers. And, if you have a great buyer's agent, they're doing their due diligence and they're going to tell you it's overpriced for the neighborhood. You're going to not recoup the same equity you would if you bought, at the lower end of the neighborhood. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a challenge.
So they end up being upside down.
Well, and the hard part too is you're not going to find comps appraisal wise. So on the mortgage side of things, we have to go through an appraisal management company, and a lot of people don't know this. We don't get to talk directly to the appraisers. They don't want us influencing value. So an appraiser will go in and they'll try to value this home. And so say you get under contract, right? And it's $500,000. Every other house in the neighborhood's $375,000. But there's a ton of upgrades. Gold chandeliers, whatever. Just imagine. Appraiser comes in, can't find comps, so the value of the home is going to be based on the comps in the neighborhood that are at $375,000. And what people don't realize is, per law, an appraiser can't go more than 25% higher on, like fixtures and so on and so forth. So like you can't give more than 25% value. So the $375,000, say that's the other top end house, and you're at $500,000, and yeah, you put that much work into it. They're going up 25% on the different, ads. And I actually ran into that. There was a builder. This is before we started the business. I was working at New Res, and we had somebody come to us, apply for a loan, and it was a builder. He built the entire neighborhood, and it was nice homes, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, great. Not super high end, but maybe closer to the high end than the low end, if that makes sense. But he kept the lot that was at the highest point. This is weird. It was at the highest point in the neighborhood, so it overlooked the rest of the neighborhood, had the most acreage, and he brought in the Italian marble. He built his house twice the size of everybody else, and now he built it with cash, and now he wanted to get his cash out, which we can either do delayed financing or we can do a cash out refinance to recoup the money for people if they wanted to do that. And we couldn't get him his money because he was so priced out of that neighborhood. And I argued it until I was blue in the face with the lenders, went back and forth with the appraiser, and that's how I found out about the appraisal rules, because lenders literally have no control over the appraisal. And so when I talked to the person who made the final decision, which was, I think, with Fannie Mae, and they were going to grant an exception on it, and they decided not to. He said, you know what, we just can't. Like, the secondary market doesn't like this, so, and they went into this whole thing. But one of the things they mentioned, because of where the house sat and how it overlooked everything, he's like, it's almost like a king in his kingdom. The king has this massive castle. How do you value that with no comps in the area and nothing within, I'm talking within miles of this house? And you can run into that with the fix and flip as well. And I find that a lot of first time, even first, second, inexperienced people on the fix and flip, they get emotionally attached, which is why it happens. And you can't.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah. Fix and flip is, I like fix and hold.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because it gets rid of some of the risk.
Yeah. Fix and hold. And then a lot of you'll get young investors are eager, and I love to steer towards house hacking. I don't know if you've had experience with that, but I think back to when I was in college, and my girlfriend at the time, her parents co-signed for a townhome, and then she rented out the other 2 rooms and well over covered her mortgage. And I'm like, why did I think of that? She started real estate, at 18, 19, and there's a way to do that, and if you're living in the property, then your down payment's going to be lower. There's going to be some benefits to that. So whether you buy a home, you rent out 3 of the 4 bedrooms, or you buy a duplex and you live on one side, rent the other side out, it's a great way to start. And then, down the road when you're ready, you sell that, use that as a investment property, and move on to the next purchase.
I did that. That's exactly. Awesome. I bought a foreclosure in HUD home. It was in Madison Park, on the corner of what was it, Woodlawn and South Boulevard, that neighborhood back
great
there.
Area, yeah.
And it was before it was a great area. It was still up and coming at that point. It was before they put all the breweries and stuff in, but we knew what was going to happen in that. And but gained a ton of value. I actually slept in the house with no doors on it the first night. It was before I met Liz, my wife, but she ended up moving in when we got together, and we lived. That was our.
Doors on it then.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't have moved in without the doors. Well, in the night, so what I did was, this was a few years before I met her. So it was me, my friend Anthony, who's my younger brother's best friend. He does all our headshots and stuff on the website for us. We lived there. He rented a room for me, and he did great. So he would help me fix the house up. So I was that the guy who was the first time investor who wanted to, do all the work himself. So I've made that mistake. But because I held, it makes up for a lot of mistakes because you gain the appreciation and the equity in the property. I ended up having 4 different roommates that rented out the rooms, that paid for it. Even when Liz and I first were together, we had one of her friends rented a room and one of my friends rented a room from us. But we ended up selling that house and made almost $200,000 in profit. So it was awesome. But also that's the time that Charlotte exploded. So we caught more than 10% a year in equity, which you can in some neighborhoods. You can, like Winona back in the day when that was booming. Oh man, people were 100, 200% on that up there. Yeah, but that was a HUD home. It was $100 down payment, and I walked away from closing with a check because I upped my interest rate a little bit to get the credit. So I walked away from closing with a check, and I did have a general contractor come in and put helical piers, but like the floors I did myself, the painting, the new drywall, all that was myself. And a buddy, Kevin Thanem, shout out to Kevin. He's down in Florida now, or else I'd refer everybody to him because he's a great contractor. I'm trying to think of some. So I had another thought, but I forget. You guys go on. You tell me what you want to talk about next.
Don't go. Not all at one
I'm
time
looking
now.
at notes. There's a lot of good stuff on your notes.
Yeah, what else?
There's a
in your
ton of good stuff on your
investment
notes.
experience?
I mean, like the bigger investors, like private money lending.
Private money lending.
Hedge funds.
Mhm.
Do you have a lot of experience with that?
Unfortunately, yes. And I don't say that from
Where do you start?
So, like, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, honestly, like, it seems to be a little bit of mixed emotions, or
it is. It's the number one thing that takes up the most of my time.
Okay.
So
I can see because you have to
right. So with
hunting.
right, it takes up the most of my time. But then when it comes time to negotiate, it's not like going to get a mortgage, right? You go and get a mortgage, you get terms up front. What we do is we have to bring a deal, a pitch deck, whatever, and it's more of a capital raise, so we don't even treat it like a mortgage. We treat it as we're consulting a client of ours, and we're the professional when it comes to mortgage terms. So we've had some high-profile people that we've done this for, like where NDAs are signed, can't give out names type of clientele. And the terms are going to be dictated on how desperate the client looking to raise the money is, right? So if you are desperate, I tell you flat out, like, you put me in a position to where I can't negotiate. And I think, and Mike can probably speak to this, when it comes to negotiating terms on behalf of my client, I'm pretty good at it. Would you agree, Mike?
Yeah. Right.
So
yeah, he does a good job.
with that being said, it takes up the most time. There was a 2-week period for one of my clients recently here where I was on the phones from 7 in the morning till 1 in the morning. Now, the reason the mixed emotion comes in is because I'm a residential mortgage guy, building wealth through real estate guy, and I actually had to put team members in place to communicate to my clients and my realtor partners on my behalf, right? So I took one of our loan officers who I've known since we were 18 years old, who's extremely intelligent, and I took him out of the loan officer role, and now he's my loan partner. So, like, when I'm doing this, the podcast, like, my clients, the ball's not getting dropped at my clients because my passion is helping people get into homes.
Right.
Well, hold on the negotiation part. What Nick does a really good job of is that he protects both sides. So that's huge. It's not all about how much money we're making or the business is making. It's about making the right decisions, the right choices for both, parties. And you got to have that. It's very important in these type of deals because there's a lot of moving parts.
Well,
And
and
you have to build relationships with these people.
on both sides.
Yeah, on both sides. So you don't want to, exclusively represent one party, or so you have to work with both sides of the transaction.
I do. And I explain that to everybody when I talk to them which is why I lay things out very direct and very straightforward from start to finish, period. Like, hey, if I have to incur a cost to get you this money, you're going to cover that cost whether this closes or not, because I can't jeopardize our mortgage business because that's what 65 to 75% of our business is. Mike mentioned, doing a good job of try. My whole thing with business, and maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I've had my own business since I was 24 years old. Like, this is my fourth business. I was in mortgage the whole time, but I've had other businesses. And I've learned a lot. And the number one thing I have learned is good business means both sides win, period.
100%.
Absolutely. Agree.
But when you're dealing with hedge funds and when you're dealing with private money, like, these are guys and girls with a ton of money. Like, I'm talking, I have verified assets from one person of $30 million in liquid cash just ready to deploy. To have $30 million in liquid cash, think about what your actual net worth is.
Just laying around.
Just laying around, right?
Chump change.
They don't want other
Billion.
people. Like, not all of them, but they want to feel like they have won, and they really want to have won.
Right.
So you have to convince them, like, this is a great deal for you, and then you have to convince your client that this is what you need. Because I'm not going to say it's always a great deal for the client,
Yes.
because a lot of, like, the one I'm thinking of came to us on such short terms, I flat out said, I don't want to do this. I have to. I need your help. Nobody else will help. Okay, well,
This is the best I can do.
I said, you're going to get screwed, and it's an extremely short-term loan. It's going to be ugly, and I have no leverage. There's zero leverage. So you go to somebody who has millions of dollars, and you need a couple million of that, and they know you, and you need it in 2 weeks or less. How do you win?
What are your options?
You
That's-
don't.
You don't have any options.
This is the win, though, for the client.
Mm-hmm.
The client gets out of the situation they're in, and even though they're paying a high interest rate on that, they're in a situation where they need that, and it's such a short-term thing. It was like a 4 to 6 month loan that they're going to be able to pay that back and then make a bunch of money on the back end because of the business transaction that was happening. So and I'm talking about maybe borrow $2 million because they had to have that in order for the rest of the business transaction to go. They're having to pay back, say, $600,000, $450,000 to $600,000, depending on how long they kept the loan. There's probably $150,000 between attorney's fees, and there's a lot of, like, it's not just title work at that point. We have to get title work, but the title work costs $12,000, right? There's attorney's fees. Just one attorney is almost $40,000 because of the amount of hours and everything had to be dropped. Then there's our fee for, which is a percentage of the money raised.
What about the appraisal fee? Wasn't that
The
thing
appraisal was
expensive
super
too?
expensive, and I don't want to say the number because I don't want certain clients to know who I'm talking about, but it was 5 figures, and
Wow.
like not like low 5 figures, like it
Right.
was like getting towards the middle of 5 figures. So there's that fee. Everything had to be turned around in like 24 hours, but with that being said, you're looking at less than $1 million all in fees and costs for that loan for him. But you're looking at probably 10 to 12 million in cash that he'll make over the next 24 months because we were able to get it done. So I had to look at the big picture there because it just did not sit right with me. I just am like, these terms, boof. I would rather not make money than put you in those terms. But that's why there's mixed emotion. But then it's also not up to me. It's like what you said. I said, like, if you have a client, I said, do you still sell them the house? You're like, yeah, because it helps them meet their goal. Well, I still give them the loan because it helps them meet his goal,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't mean you feel great about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's the client's decision,
Yeah.
to move
You
forward.
can't
or not.
decide for them. I can't decide what's best for somebody else.
Right.
So we do that, and then like we have a technology capital raise for technology. We're doing, we do equity raises as well. So like we're doing one for ourselves. We're under contract for a building here in downtown, and we're going to be putting together a pitch deck and bringing an investor in to do it's a dilapidated building, 7,500 square feet on the upper level is going to be our offices, and then 7,500 square feet of retail downstairs. So we have some
That's
cool
exciting.
yeah, we're super pumped for it. We have some cool designs for that. Mike's been working with engineers and architects on it. For people who are watching, and you guys, like, he's our number 2 here. Like, what I can't get to, Mike does, and he makes sure this keeps going because, like, those equity raises and stuff, they take up so much of my time.
Sure.
But I also have the biggest pipeline still as a loan officer. So I'm not only am I doing that, a lot of the equity and capital raises are after hours. Like, so till 10, 11, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning with Devin George. We got to cut that. But yeah, so it was, it was a pretty big thing. Make sure you remind me to cut that. It was a pretty big thing, and it takes lots and lots of hours. So even like, I have another, not Luigi who was on the podcast, but I have another NFL player that I'm close with who's doing equity raise in a technology company. So it's all goes along the lines of lending, and I don't know how we got here. We started a mortgage company, which we are,
right?
And then now we're here. So
just another example of all the ways to invest and build wealth
and bring value
through
to
and it's through real estate.
How can you help?
It's through real estate, land development. I'm meeting with, I think it's, I don't know if I'm allowed to say their name, but I'm meeting with a pretty big company out of the southeast Atlanta area that's they manage $3.5 billion in assets. They're sending somebody up here this week. I'm going to be sitting down with them. We're looking to create a niche product specifically for builders and people who flip.
That's incredible.
Right, so it's going to be like a credit line that doesn't require an appraisal every time. So that's my goal, is we'll be the only people in the country with that.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a huge need. So like a lot of what we're talking about is development. So this is considered commercial, everything I'm talking about, but it's not tier one. Tier one's like commercial residential. Tier two is like horizontal, vertical, and like land development. And then tier three is like just you're flat out negotiating for whatever you need. Like if there's something out there that somebody needs that's a little unique or one off, we will bring it to people because there's somebody who has an appetite for it. So
yeah. There's somebody out there to buy everything.
Yeah, I can't believe I slipped up. I'm mad.
I know.
Good thing we can edit, right?
Yeah, we're going to have to take it down off the live as soon as I get off.
Okay.
Which we'll put it back up edited. So
Sure.
It'll take us less than 24 hours to do that. But
And that's awesome to hear all the ways that you're thinking big scale. And so
Right.
what advice would you give for someone who's like, man, I really want to start investing, but how do I start, like, from the financial side? We ask all the questions, we appreciate their goals, and then we send them to you guys, and we're like, okay, let us know, what that looks like. So what does your side of that conversation look like for someone first time investing comes to you?
It varies depending on the investor. So if you have like Luigi, who's, NFL player for the Carolina Panthers, who comes to me, he asked me for advice, and I said, I'm not going to give advice. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of everything that you can do. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you've seen, right? So if you had I'm going to use myself as an example because I told you I did a house hack. Well, I was 23, maybe 24, and didn't have a lot of money. Ben and I had bought an investment property in Cornelius already, and Ben had bought a townhome that was his primary in Dilworth, which I was renting a room at, and looking back on it, it was like $200 a month, so he basically let me live there for free.
That's a good friend.
Owned that townhouse together, and then I was saving up money, but we went over this Friday with Luigi. My first job was at Quicken Loans, which is Rocket Mortgage. So I was making $36,000 a year in my first year in the industry. So I didn't have a lot. So I had to figure out a way, how do I get into this home with the least amount of money possible? I saved up like $5,000, and I house hacked, right? So I think that's a great, like, for young people who are trying to get into it, I think house hacking is the way to go.
Yeah.
You can do FHA, 3.5% down. We can get you a DPA program where it goes to 0% down. So now, and you can buy a duplex. People don't realize you can buy a duplex, and now it's paying for itself. And in 6 months to a year, you can do the same thing and go from 0 doors to 4 doors in 18 months, right? Now you have 4 units that you're renting out. That's for first time. For somebody who's looking to build a portfolio, I had a guy that we just closed, and he has a couple of houses overseas. He's from another country. He's an American citizen now. He's awesome. Love him. He super driven, does really well in his job, has a bunch of cash, and wants just something in his portfolio. So he wanted a townhome. I was like, I hate townhomes for investing. And ask me why, because you can't cash flow on him. He doesn't want to cash flow. He doesn't care about cash flowing. He wants long-term investment that is going to gain equity, And in the area it will gain equity, and he's
Mm-hmm.
going to keep it. He's not talking 5 years, 6 years. He's talking about keeping this thing for 15 to 20
Yeah,
to 25,
same.
passing it down to children, that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? So that's good for him. I had actually another realtor on, Nick Owens, and he has a lot of people who are just looking to add to portfolio and aren't as concerned about cash flowing that much. So what they're doing is they're buying units in new developments. So they'll come in and buy the first 5 to 10 units in the new development and sit on it for 6, 7 years until the development is done. And by y'all know, by the time the development's done, they gain a ton of equity. So it really depends who the investor is. But for first-time investors, I would say house hack, because you got to get into the primary. We preach here, comprehensive real estate plan, primary residence is first, and then investment properties to build wealth.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Fun fact, did you know that in new construction, you can buy the model home and then the builder developer will rent it back for you?
lease back, oh
Lease
yeah.
back.
they
So
can
you're,
lease
I'm
it
always
back.
like, have you sold, anytime I walk into new construction, like, have you already sold the model? And they're like, yes, we have. And that's because investors are ready to pounce because
Yeah.
it's a done deal. It's a,
Right,
you know, you're
And
going to
then the
sit and
builder's-
hold.
and then the builder's leasing it back.
right.
Yeah.
So
And you already have a, tenant in place.
how long do they typically lease it back for?
Say a year to 2 years.
Mhm.
How? So maybe I should know this answer, but when I'm getting financing and stuff, a lot of times with the developments, we're getting short-term financing because people don't realize you have to take raw land and get it to lot ready, and like infrastructure is never financed. Like banks don't do it. Nobody wants to finance infrastructure.
Yeah.
We actually had somebody foreclosed on in a development that is asking for our help to save the development for them because they financed the infrastructure and didn't know. They got to their 7th draw and completed pretty much all of phase 1 except for the curbs. Curbs. And they got foreclosed on because they came out, inspected, and saw infrastructure was included, which, in my opinion, the lender should have seen that because it was part of the plans. And on top of it, the client was new to this, but they also should have seen it because the loan documents literally said no infrastructure, right? So I think it was a miss on both sides. But with that being said, going from raw land to lot ready is considered the riskiest.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times where we're doing capital raises to raise money for that portion of it. And we're actually in negotiations with one now that Mike's leading. So
It's risky and expensive.
it's risky because a lot of times they'll sell it to like a Lennar or a True Homes USA or a big lender. And they have a certain amount of time where they can back out of the contract for any reason. So you're putting money up with a contract that with typically a purchase contract for the lot ready lots. But in that purchase contract, it says until we do X, Y, and Z, we can back out
There's
for
an
any
exit
reason.
strategy.
There's an exit. So if the market tanks, you're out a couple $1 million.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Lots of research.
lots of research. Lots of research. Mineral rights, rock rights. You know, there's just a lot that goes into that. What would you tell? You said house hack. What would you tell first-time investors or investors in general on what they should hop into?
It's not so prevalent in the market today, but I think a good place to start is foreclosures,
Agreed.
HUD homes, and buy and hold. That's where a lot of investors that I have worked with that have built portfolios over the years have bought HUD homes and foreclosures. But I mean, right now it's not real big because there's not as many out there. But I think that market will be picking up in the next maybe couple of years.
I think they'll pick up in commercial
Before.
way before. Yeah.
But
Like I think because when you were saying that, I was literally thinking, foreclosures. Yeah, that's that because my house hack was a foreclosed property. It was a HUD home. But commercial is about to run into that this summer.
oh yeah,
So if you have investors that want to get into commercial, now's the time because that bubble, it doesn't necessarily pop, but it's going to
it's going to come to a
right, and it's going to be
head. Yeah.
yeah, and they're going to have people. It's almost $3 trillion of commercial real estate that is being held by banks that there's no exit strategy for. So when that bubble goes, it will depress the price of the real estate for a short period. Because even in 2008, by 2012, home prices were more expensive than they were 2008 before the crash.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones who lose are the ones who can't hang on.
Right.
Don't sell. I call it diamond hands. Squeeze so hard that your hands turn to diamonds, right? But yeah, so just hang
Pressure,
on.
no diamonds.
But I think that's a great idea, foreclosure HUD home.
Mhm.
You know,
Tax sales.
tax sales.
I mean, you take a chance, but a lot of times it does end up going in your favor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know multiple investors that do the tax sales. I wonder what the hit percentage is on those. 50-50 maybe? But you don't lose money if you buy it, right?
You don't.
No.
Mm-mm.
So the only way you lose is if you get possession of the home and then do something to screw it up at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That would be the only way.
So that's pretty safe.
Mhm.
What about y'all? Any other ideas for investors, first time investors trying to get in?
I mean, I know there's a lot of discussions about like the DSCR loans.
Oh, I love DSCR.
Um,
You want me to go into that a little bit? All right, so DSCR loans, debt service cover ratio, right?
Mhm.
So it's a little bit tougher for first-time investors on DSCR because they're going to cap the amount of the loan to value. So you have to, a lot of the time it's going to be between 65 and 75%. So you have
Okay.
to bring a little bit more, but you actually don't need income to qualify. The property just has to pay for itself, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, with first time, they're going to want 1.25, which means if you're making, I'm going to use even numbers, and if we see these mortgage costs at some point again, I'll be happy. But say your mortgage payment's $1,000,
mhm.
they're going to want you to make in rents $1,000 plus 25%.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that's 1.25% ratio,
Mhm.
right? So that's a lot of times for first time. That's also for if you're doing commercial residential where it's purely in a business name. So people don't realize, like, when you come to me and you're like, I want to buy this property in a business name, absolutely, let's buy it in a business name. They don't realize that it's actually considered a business purpose loan. So we're closing in just a business name. You're not personally liable, but they still will pull a personal credit report. They want to make sure not like financial crimes and stuff aren't there, but it doesn't go on your personal credit. It only goes in that business name. You'll be at like a 1.25% DSCR ratio for that as well because it's deemed a little bit riskier. But one of the cool things about going commercial residential is we can use AirDNA, right? So what AirDNA is it takes into consideration Airbnb and what the Airbnb income was. So you don't have to worry about going out and getting a long-term lease or a 1007, which is a rent schedule. Or if you bought a property like what we do and fix it up, we can then use AirDNA to go from that short term, because it's still considered fix and flip, but we're flipping it into a rental property. So that short term, the way that would work for DSCR is, you buy a dilapidated property, for example, you get that short term fix and flip debt, which is 12 to 18 months typically, and then we would refinance it. Well, before, up until recently, you could not refinance it without lease agreements because they wanted to see that they weren't going to use it. Right. On a purchase, they'll use a 1007, which is on the appraisal. It's a rent schedule. Well, now it's like, okay, well, they aren't requiring a lease agreement anymore. We can actually use AirDNA to show, hey, this property in this market is going to make X amount of dollars. So that is the 1.25% DSCR ratio. So it allows people who do room rentals and things like that to get dilapidated properties or properties that need repairs. We can actually close on that pretty quickly in 3 to 5 days. They have 6 months to 18 months typically is the term, and then we would put them into a long-term debt situation, which is 30 years, and it lowers the rate, and it's not interest only and all that stuff. But DSCR is a great form of investment. If you're an experienced person, you can go up to, in some cases, 93% loan to value, right?
Oh, okay.
So, and the interest rates are a little bit lower if we go commercial residential compared to going just residential. Now, if we go residential DSCR, it's in your personal name, so we can actually go below a 1% DSCR, right? So if you have experience, we can go down a lot of times to 0.75.
Okay.
So you
Oh,
just have
that's
to
a
make
huge jump.
75% of whatever the monthly cost is for you to have that property mortgage-wise. So there's a lot of different things that we can do there and get creative with it. On the flip side, for realtors, that's not as regulated, so they can technically change what's required halfway through the transaction if the market starts to tighten. So we've run into that a little bit recently.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's not an us thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the secondary market, which is the investors.
Yeah.
So what people don't realize is that they ask, do you sell your mortgages?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody sells mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
Every single mortgage, 100% of mortgages are sold to the secondary market.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, do you service it?
Mm-hmm.
And 97% of what we do is serviced, right? So what that means is, have you guys seen the movie The Big Short?
Mm-hmm.
So The Big Short is you package the mortgages into mortgage-backed securities. They're sold on the secondary market as investors. So when we're looking at interest rates and such, the bond market dictates what the interest rates are. So it's very similar to the stock market, except it's overnight trading. So when the Fed says they're hiking the interest rate, they're hiking the overnight bank rate, which is the trading of bonds.
Yeah.
Well, the bonds will react to different news, and some of it's speculative, and that's what causes these big spikes up and down recently in interest rates. And it's all based off of mortgage-backed securities, what they're trading at, and so on and so forth. So yes, every mortgage is sold. The question that we should be asking for young realtors is, do you service? Because if the answer is no, it means they're selling their servicing rights to a different company, and then that company is then going to be calling the client, trying to, one, refinance the client, but then they're having to switch the actual companies they were working with. So if 97% of what we do and the 3% is jumbo, nobody's really services jumbo. Those typically all go to like the big banks like Flagstar and Chase. But, you know, typical Fannie, Freddie, HUD, VA, USDA, we're 97%, but that's a good question for young realtors. If you're working with a lender or a broker, ask if they service their own paper. Don't ask if they sell it. Right.
What are y'all's opinions on short-term rentals? I'm curious about that. There's been a lot of regulations,
Like
and
Airbnbs.
a kind of crackdown.
Love them. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So crackdowns by cities.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's,
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to find the areas that allow it, and you need to be pretty educated on what it is that you're doing. But from my standpoint, I would much rather do short term because the margins are bigger. It's riskier, but the margins are bigger. The way I look at it is do short term until you can't do short term anymore, and then lease it out if you have to.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So what I have found, and we talked to Ashley LaPointe, she had both. And she would much rather go short term, is what she said, because she said there's more wear and tear on like furniture, but less damage to the property
Overall.
than long term, because they're just in the property every day. And she found it a bit easier. And then the other piece is the cash upside is just so much higher. So my opinion on short term is so I have a lot of clientele in Charleston. I think they can do one short term. That's it. I think they're only allowed to have one investment property. I have to look back at that, but
it's crazy that's
there's not enough inventory.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You're looking at a 3-bedroom. It's almost New York City prices there at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Charles, just city by city is looking at it, and then you also need to check HOA if you're going to get like a townhome or a condo or something and try to do Airbnb with that. You need to check what the HOA and condo docs say, because you can get yourself in trouble with it. But I believe it's a better investment from a cash flow standpoint than just a long-term rental if you're looking for cash flow.
Sure.
So.
I've run into the challenge a lot in
Completely
Charlotte, where a lot of the high-rise, the condos near uptown absolutely do not allow it. It's either a 14-day minimum or a long-term, 6 months to a year minimum.
Well, 14-day minimum I think is safer too, right? So I have a 30-day minimum on mine.
Okay.
And the reason for that is traveling nurses. They're that's a huge market.
Especially here. I mean,
it's huge
Charlotte,
here.
Yeah.
Charlotte's huge. Then if you're in like a town with a lot of manufacturing, they have a lot of people who come in work-wise for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. We just had one of our rooms, and we do per room, and you can do that on Airbnb, long-term per room. We just had one of our rooms rented out for 12 weeks.
Wow.
So, and then the other one's rented out for 8, and then there's a third room that we're looking, hopefully get rented out, but we posted it 2 weeks ago, and we have 21 weeks rented already. So, yeah, it's pretty, it's there to go 4 months or 4 weeks or longer. I think that the hard part with the Airbnb too is like you have to find great cleaning crews
Yep.
that can come in and clean
Reliable.
up within 24 to 48 hours that are actually going to show up.
Yes.
That's the hard part. It's more of hospitality than it is portfolio building.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those condos, I would push people towards the 14 days. Absolutely, cool. I'm cool with 14-day minimum. That's not a problem to me, because then you're going after somebody who typically has a job that isn't there just to party and see an
Right.
event, because that's
Right.
where you
Yeah.
can probably run into some trouble too, is when it's event time. So,
Absolutely.
Get hammered and tear your stuff up.
well, and I saw one with an NFL player who rented out one out in Los Angeles and did like $150,000 of damage in one day. Oh my god! I don't know if it was NFL. Don't quote me on that, but
That's crazy.
We won't.
it was something like that. It was on Yahoo News, so who knows how accurate it was, but it seemed accurate. So
But that could have been $150,000. Could have been, I don't know.
a couch.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a mansion.
True.
It could have been. That's true.
Artwork.
Yeah.
I know.
Persian rug.
Have you had a lot of people coming to you asking about short-term rentals, or
Yeah.
I heard that there's supposed to be an Airbnb bubble to pop, and it never popped. So I'm wondering, and this is what I'm talking about with mainstream media is like they'll
It's a chatter.
they,
Yep.
and then they post rumors and this is gonna happen, and then you go on like a Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and people are like putting up all this analysis, and it reminds me of like it's just all rumors. Like the world still hasn't ended. The United States is still here. People
nothing
are
is
still
absolute.
nothing is absolute. People are still making money.
Still don't have flying cars.
Yeah.
Elon's working on
Close.
that.
I mean, the new Tesla
Close.
truck.
Yeah,
Looks
they're
like
working.
it might fly.
I
I saw it the first time the other day.
So
It
ugly.
was
I did too.
45. I was like, speed up. I want to see it.
Liz and I got behind one. I was like, oh my God, there's a Tesla truck. And Nick Jr. was seeing it through, he was sitting in the middle seat in the back seat of my truck, and he was seeing it. Those things are huge, first off.
Huge.
But they're
Yeah.
ugly.
They look like a damn shoebox.
I think
Yeah.
they're ugly too.
They are
I
so
have not
ugly.
seen one in person.
Yeah.
So I don't know how big they are, but I know that they're ugly.
They are huge.
Massive.
They barely fit on the road.
Yeah.
But if they hit somebody like head
Like
on,
Hummer size. Like,
bigger.
Really?
Oh yeah, bigger than Hummer. They're huge. But I guess they steer themselves, so you don't have to worry about them hitting somebody head on or whatever. But yeah, they would run them over. So
Imagine the work we could get done if we're
yeah.
our car's driving for us.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's what I want. I want a
Right?
self-driving car. I'd put a computer in the back seat.
Same.
yeah. And just sit in the back.
Right. Like the Lincoln lawyer. You guys
Exactly.
got anything else for me?
So one other question.
Yeah, keep going as many as you
So,
want.
your advice on clients or sellers who they're waiting for the market to drop and they want to stay in their home, and now they're like, oh, I can't look at this kitchen anymore. We want to do some interior updates.
Mm-hmm.
When they come to you with that, explain kind of how you walk through the process of do we do a HELOC? Do we do a cash out refi? What are all the things you take into consideration just to help us educate our clientele? Because I'm hearing a lot of that. Like, I'm not ready to sell, but I want to update my home to fit our current needs.
First and foremost, I'm going to look at a HELOC because it keeps them locked into that low interest rate that they currently have on their primary.
Sure.
Now, a lot of lenders might not say that because we don't make any money on HELOCs. It's essentially just a service for our client. But
Okay.
I'm okay with that because at some point they're going to want to pay that HELOC off, and hopefully I gave them a good enough service to where they come back to me to help them
Sure.
put that into one once interest rates lower. But what you have to look at is how much equity, right? So we have tools that we can run to see projected equity, and then we get the documentation to make sure they can. You still have to underwrite the loan from an income standpoint. So instead of loan to value, it's combined loan to value. So we have to make sure we stay within those guidelines. We have to make sure debt to income is there, credit score is there. What's your monthly payment going to be? And we educate them on this is what this is going to look like per month. So this is where we run into, the over upgrading. So if you're in a neighborhood where and I have a client I have to talk to about this today. I was looking at it over the weekend, where the houses are $425,000, but you want to put $300,000 work into it. One, I don't know if the equity is there to get. Number two, we would have to go cash out, and that cash out refinance for improvements because they'll take post repair into consideration on the appraisal. But
Okay.
I don't know if we can get to the 725.
Sure.
So maybe we can get the 600, which would give them 150,000. But there's just not any comps in the area. So we have to take all of that into consideration when we're talking about repairs. If it's $50,000 kitchen, most of the time we're just going to go HELOC because we can go up to $500,000 on a HELOC if we wanted to, if the equity's there. So we're looking at it at a case-by-case basis. If somebody came to me for, hey, I want to do repairs like you were saying, the first thing I'm going to say is look at a HELOC because it's going to keep you locked into your rate. So especially rates have gone up again. So
I saw that.
Yeah, it's been crazy. You're looking at 8% again. So, but that's what happens when we have a million wars going on and we're printing money to spend and so on and so forth. Inflation gets a little sticky at that point. But my whole thing is look at HELOC first. If you're trying to educate them, make sure they're not over upgrading, or have you have to have comps, not necessarily for HELOC, but you have to have the equity for the HELOC. But you might want to educate them on making sure they have comps so that they're not like putting in like making it look like Trump Tower where it's all gold, right? In a neighborhood that's calling for silver.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then HELOC-wise, we're going to look at how much equity they have, combined loan to value, income, credit score. It's the same as a regular mortgage. So,
awesome.
Do you find, like, I know you work with different banks, so
yes.
you're able to shop rates, obviously. Are you able to get a pretty good any kind of loan, like rate discounts, things?
So, for save the client money. So this is interesting. HMDA data, HMDA. It's government published data. Mortgage brokers save the client on average $9,400 per transaction. We typically, if you're going apples to apples, so somebody, and I'm going to use Rocket Mortgage as an example because I worked there for 8 years. But Rocket Mortgage, if you can go at retail, right, and that means the client goes directly to that lender. If they came to us and we went to Rocket Mortgage, who has a broker channel, we would be about half a percent point lower on interest rate.
That's another reason to go.
Right.
With,
and we are set up as lender paid comp.
Like
so right. So we're set up as lender paid comp, so they're not actually paying us directly, the buyer. The lender's actually paying us, and the way that works is it's built into the interest rate. So your interest rate is lower and they're paying us compared to if you went directly to them.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I tell people with retail that you have to be careful of, meaning if I was to walk in directly to a mortgage company and go with them, is they know that you don't know what you're doing because they do this every day. So a lot of times they will manipulate the fee sheets or the loan estimates and not show you all of the charges. They'll build some into interest rate. They'll build some into the back end. Mortgage brokers are not allowed to do that. So we either have to be lender paid or borrower paid, which means it's either going to be built into the interest rate or it's going to be paid by you at closing. We can't do both. They can. So when they see an interest rate and then an origination charge as well, they need to ask about that if they're going directly to retail. And there's a lot of good retail lenders out there, but they, government published data says that they're more expensive. And
hands down.
They don't like hearing that because they are losing a ton of market share. They went from 92% of market share, and it's about 50-50 at this point. Getting close to it. It's not quite there. We're at like 43% of market share. My whole career has been in the broker channel, except for a brief stint when I underwrote on retail. So I believe in the broker channel, and
That's how I've always gone.
I also think that if you're working with a mortgage broker, like a lot of what we make our money when the loan closes, right? We don't make money unless it does. If you go directly to a bank, well, the people you're dealing with are paid a salary. So to me, there's more of an incentive for me to be better at my job. So I'm going to be able to get more things closed. So but as far as saving the client money, we save the client on average $9,400 per transaction. The data I've been tracking here is between 0.5% to a full percent lower in interest rate and anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 less in closing costs. So lower interest rate, lower closing costs.
Absolutely.
And the lower interest rate means you can afford more house because your payment's less.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about. I'll get beat up by the retail people online. I got a few rivals on LinkedIn. So
just validation of who you partner with matters.
That's
what
I was getting at. Yeah.
Right. Well, and the other piece too is like I can give you multiple options, right? So if you want the cheapest rate you can possibly get, and I prep every realtor about this, you're going to be going with X, Y, or Z lender. They give the best rates, but understand like that's not a 10-day closing. That's a 45-day closing because you get what you pay for. Now, if you don't mind going up $30 a month in payment and you can still qualify for the same home, we'll get you closed in 10 days because that lender is better. I'm not going to use any of their names. And I could, but I'm not going to because there's this huge thing in the industry right now. Lawsuits are being filed, and they're steering people here. They should be bringing them to the lowest rate. And I just disagree with that. I think you get what you pay for, and every client's different. Some want a better experience. Some want a lower interest rate. Some have to have a lower interest rate. Some want down payment assistance, which these lenders don't offer, but these ones do. So there's just a lot of different scenarios. We have more products. We can get pretty much anyone qualified. You know, I mean, I just closed a $450,000 purchase. They had a 580 FICO, and it wasn't because of derogatories, but it was manual underwrite. You can't go to, like, Movement Mortgage can't do that.
Right.
So
I mean, not many people
Right,
do
and
manual underwrites at all anymore.
yeah, so we do. Don't tell too many people that, but we do. So we can get all that done, and then they're actually not much harder. It's just stricter guidelines. So like you have to have 10% cash reserves, things of that nature. No lates on your housing in the last 2 years, things of that. So
Reverse mortgages. Yes.
Yes. So we can do reverse mortgages, and I'm just going to be fully transparent. I don't know a ton about them. Trey knows more about them. Trey's one of our loan officers here. He's more in that age group. No offense, Trey. He's not really in that age group. He's younger, but he's like Mike's age, which isn't old.
They're the same
Thank
age.
you.
I would have never guessed. But what I'm saying is that's not old. So that's not, but yeah, we do reverse mortgages. That is, it's a big conversation right now among
I've seen it coming up.
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae. The agencies are asking permission to enter the HELOC market, home equity line of credit, because they think it would be beneficial to the seniors who are having cash flow issues because of rising cost. But reverse mortgage is very similar. That's one of those ones where I've known about reverse mortgages forever. Since I got into the industry, I have never done a reverse mortgage. It's just not my personal clientele. My personal clientele is $1 million plus, and investors and self-employed and first-time home buyers. Those are like the four groups that I really work a lot with. I mean, I work with not first-time home buyers as well, but reverse mortgage falls outside of my expertise, but our team is. We have experts on our team that I would refer them to. And it can be good depending on your situation. Like, it comes down client by client, so we do reverse.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you can do it all, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like, yes. Well, I talk to people all the time. We literally do everything. I mean, there's not a lot of people who are doing capital raises. There's not a lot of people who can do it all. The hard part for me personally is scaling the capital raises, and how do we put that into a process that is scalable, because right now I'm the one who negotiates everything. Mike helps with that as well. Mike's good at it, but it's within our parameters. And but from a mortgage standpoint, like Candace D, certified underwriter, top 1%. Ron, same thing. Our new employee, same thing. Ben, same thing. Myself, I was, weirdly enough, was a pretty high producing underwriter. So we have an underwriting background here. So we put the client in the best spot, and we underwrite everything up front. So going into the contract that is going to get approved.
Which is so
Absolutely, yeah.
important
That
in a
was my
competitive market.
experience.
To show up front,
Right.
we're through underwriting, sets you apart from your contenders when we're in multiple offers.
Well, that's what happened with our mutual client that we had. And he was a tough one. He's very secretive, which a lot of people are. Like, they don't want to put all their stuff out there.
Sure.
But once he understood and we had that conversation, and I'm a very direct person, and I think he is too, and loved him. I would work with him 100 times over. He's friends with Candace as well, who sits on our floor. Once we had the direct conversation, you have to tell me everything. This is why I need it, so that I can make a plan. Then it went pretty smooth.
Oh, yeah.
It
And we
went-
closed in less than 30 days.
Right, easily, yeah. It would have been quicker, too, if you would have just given us
Yeah,
all the information up
absolutely.
front.
And it was still within the FHA, yeah.
Yeah,
So it was still.
I think so,
That's
yeah.
a pretty.
It's pretty.
That's a good turnaround.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, we average 14.7 days on just our residential stuff. Commercial residential takes a little bit longer. The short-term fix and flip stuff, we can actually get closed quicker depending on who we go with. But yeah, we average 14.7 days on residential. Construction stuff like renovation loans, they take a little bit longer because we have to get documents from contractors. Contractors are in the field. It's just a little bit slower. Ground up construction, That takes a little bit longer. Same reasoning. We have to get stuff from the contractors, and that can take longer. The biggest thing is, if I set proper expectations with y'all as realtors, there's never any noise.
Yeah.
So let me ask y'all a question. Do you ever feel like it's a little bit of a rivalry, realtor versus lender? Like a little bit of headbutting instead of teamwork?
I think not with the good ones.
Not with
Right.
the lenders I've
Right.
worked with and are the ones I choose to work with.
Right.
But-
So there's a big thing, and I'm on social media a lot just because of the podcast and other things. There's a big thing where there's a lot of loan officers who don't like working with realtors. They're looking to try to find business elsewhere, which I think is crazy. My advice to new loan officers would be go find a bunch of realtors that you can get along with really well.
What's the reasoning behind that?
Oh, man,
What's the rivalry?
So I don't know what the reasoning is. What I will tell you, what I think the reason is because sometimes when either you're newer or you're not a great communicator and you can't explain stuff, or if you don't like to take responsibility at times, and really just like kind of fall on the sword, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that I don't think any realtor is going to ever understand about mortgage unless they do mortgage, right?
Sure.
Just like I'm not going to understand negotiating a contract or building out a contract on the real estate side. But what I think it is that from a loan officer standpoint, they aren't communicating well enough with the realtor, then the realtor gets upset with them.
That's it. Communication.
Correct.
That's the
So, and I think that causes a feeling among some of the less experienced loan officers or the ones who just don't communicate well enough that they're being blamed or told it's their fault.
or bully. I mean, not
Right.
necessarily bully, but yeah, it's
Right.
made to feel like they were blamed. Yeah.
Right. Which it is your fault if you get at that point. Well, the buck stops with you. We read this book as a company called, well, we haven't read it yet. We're going to as a leadership group. I've read it. It's called Extreme Ownership, and you need to really make sure everybody understands what it is you're doing and that you're on the same page. And instead of pointing the finger elsewhere, kind of look in the mirror, self-reflect, and figure out, hey, what was my fault? How could I have changed things? Now, are there, from my perspective, people I've worked with that are kind of toxic? Yeah, there's one person I will not work with. They could send me a $5 million client. I just will not work with them. And I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and there's only one person. So that, to me, says a lot about communication.
And relationships.
Right, and that person also, I thought it was maybe we just don't get along, so I passed them along to somebody on my team, and same thing
experience.
happened.
Same thing.
Same
Wow.
thing. And that person's also married to one of my good friends from college. So it's just,
Yeah.
I was just not doing it.
Wow.
So,
I
but
mean, I think you learn real quick in this business, like teamwork makes the dream work. And I know
It
that's
does.
cliche, but it's so true.
It
and
does.
It is.
I rely on you for your expertise, and you rely on me for my expertise.
Right.
And if we don't work well together, then the contract doesn't go seamlessly. Like
Right.
we have to be on the same page, and I'm here to help you and you to help me. So
Right.
like let's make it a win-win. If,
Right.
if you're looking for a document, like keep me in the loop on that
Right.
so that I can help expedite
can.
that on my end and get us to the closing table as quickly as possible. So I think it's so vital who you surround yourself with and the team you create and how you present that to the clients. you
Agreed.
know.
Consumers pick up on that if they're,
And I
Right.
don't try
if
to be
there's not a good working relationship.
for
Well,
sure.
what I found when we first opened, we had to earn trust. So when when I would first start working with people, I have the realtors who sent me the first business that we ever got in this company still work with me to this day. They do their personal mortgages with us, and that to me is the biggest compliment that we could have.
Absolutely.
I have
Says a lot
clients
about
that
you.
are referring their friends and family to us, right? And then I have a couple that don't like me because they don't understand and didn't want to. There was one that gave us the wrong income docs and got caught. It was edited. We ended up getting the correct ones, and you're allowed to do that. We got the correct ones. He said, they weren't edited. That would not be allowed. They were taxes that were not filed. They were example taxes that were not filed. So before he filed the taxes, they changed, and this guy happened to be a CPA.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had to have a tough conversation with him, and he just recently refied, did not go with me. I wouldn't have gone with me either because you got caught.
right.
Like trying to loan fraud.
I don't know if it was loan fraud. I don't think it was. I think it was more he was trying to lower his tax liability.
Okay.
if that makes sense. It wouldn't have affected the mortgage, but it was like, hey man, like this is different than what this was.
Yeah.
Why? And we had to get a letter of explanation on that. So, like, yeah, that person doesn't like working with us, but for the most part, most people love working with us. And everybody on the floor, because the communication is there. But the biggest thing was earning trust when we first started, and then first transactions working together and really going above and beyond, explaining like, here it is what I do and how we do it. Let me ask y'all a question. So this is more of this will apply to loan officers on a personal production level. As our loan officers start producing more and more, like I'm at the point where I'm producing to the point where I have to have like a loan partner, because there's a lot of stuff like document chasing, which they're, they'll be able to do that as I'm talking to clients and doing pricing, because there's certain things I can do and licensed loan officers can do that unlicensed people can't, right? Like I can talk pricing and structure with a client, unlicensed people can't. So we have a team. It comes into us, it goes to the team, but I'm still point on it. Do you guys have a problem when your client comes into a company like MBI and that this is the person who took the application, but then there's a different person collecting documents from them?
I think that's usually the case.
Right. So I've had some people who don't like that.
I think if I trust you and we've created a partnership, I'm
Right.
trusting who you're aligning with that's going to serve the clientele to the same level that you would. So
Right.
Until you prove me wrong, I'm putting that trust in you to continue the same level of expertise we've already experienced.
Absolutely.
And
So
I think it's good to maybe clear that up front.
right.
Maybe as a real estate agent, like, let the client know, this is the process. This is who you're going to start. You'll start out the loan process with Nick, and then somebody else maybe hand it off. Not hand it off. He's always going to be handling everything, but somebody else is going to be collecting the documents. Don't be surprised if you hear from Candace.
Right.
Or, somebody else on the team.
So what we're trying to do now, and we are doing, is we're building in automated messaging. So when we get a client, it goes in, and I think you saw this. So like when the client that you sent over here went into the system, gets stored as you the referral that way in case that person refers to somebody. Then you get that person they refer us to, and I would touch base. That's one of the things that we do for every realtor is, hey, you referred them, it goes in your name. If that person refers somebody to me, I'm going to call you and be like, hey, so-and-so referred this client to me. I just wanted you to know they're looking to purchase a house. Have you talked to them? Because that gives you the opportunity to win their business, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we help you guys expand your book. But so you get an automated notification that we put that person in the system and referred by you. But what we're looking to do is also when we go through step by step of our process, there's a checklist that is clicked and an automated email goes out to y'all telling you where we are in the process. That's one form of communication, and the phone call, right? So phone call, follow-up email, and the email is automated. One of the things I would like to do is once we get an application and it's received, that they get an automated email. Here's what your next steps are. Here's who's going to contact you. And it's an automated email with the either a PDF attachment or an email saying, here's what we do, here's who's going to contact you, and we're going to customize that per loan officer's team.
Yeah.
Now, so we have a rule that if we don't have a document back within 48 hours and they told us they were going to get to it, that's when we reach out to the realtor, because y'all have a way of getting them to move. And we try, but then when we get y'all involved, I think it's two voices instead of one. They're like,
Sure.
I better hurry.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to close on time?
right, exactly. So
No, I love that. I think setting expectations up front. I mean, we do the same thing in real estate. Like I have a transaction coordinator. She takes over the paperwork as soon as we go under contract, and I just, set the expectation. She's the expert of keeping us on track from a paperwork perspective and, scheduling perspective. So I rely on her, and she's my go-to. And I think when you set the stage like that, then your clients have that managed expectation.
And you're also in the loop.
Yeah.
Like you're also copied on every single email.
Yeah,
You know exactly
Right.
what's going
That's how we
on.
are.
Yeah.
we have a system that anytime an email is sent or received, it goes into the system. And so like if somebody called me and said, hey, Nick, what is going on with X, Y, and Z? You can click on the loan in our system and you can see everything that's going on with it. And then each client, so we have a loan screen and then a client screen, and every client that does a loan with us, they have their own loan screen. So if they've done multiple, where I have some clients who are on like their 7th loan with me, every single loan is under there. So like even when they come to get an approval, we can go back and look through that loan and see if any of the documents we can use so that we don't have to recollect it.
Yeah.
So got another one for y'all. So we have technology that's in place that sets parameters on a pre-approval. So if I approve a client for $400,000, I can set the maximum approval amount for $400,000. But I can also have you download the app that we use. I can send you guys a pre-approval, and you'll get the PDF of $400,000 plus a link to where if you're trying to negotiate a contract over the weekend or at night or whatever, and you want to be able to go ahead and quick change it and do a quick PDF, it will not let you go higher than the amount because that could get people in trouble, but it will let you lower it. So does that sound like it would be something that's beneficial to y'all?
Absolutely.
Speaking my love language.
Yeah,
Cool.
because
So that's going to be a big thing that we're going to have Joe, Mike. We got to start pushing this out as a team to our realtors, this technology piece.
yeah, that's great.
Again, in
I
this
love that.
competitive market, like, we don't want to show all our cards,
Yeah,
up front, and we
exactly.
don't expect you to be available 24/7.
Correct.
So having
More control.
Yeah,
control to make our offer, as much in the
Clean,
benefit of the
or-
client as possible, like, serves all of us. So I appreciate you guys
Right.
being forward thinking
That's
on
really,
that.
that's great.
I got another one. Video messages about updated products and so on and so forth. So we have a technology that we've just started implementing to where we can actually have it go to your email or cell phone with a quick update. Usually they're 30 seconds or less on products or what we're working on or anything along those lines. Is that something that
Yes.
We're
cool?
much more apt to
Yes.
push a play button than read a lengthy email
Right.
because we're busy. We spend half our time in the car, so if I can listen to, it's so much easier for me to and safer for me to push play and
Yeah.
and listen to you, spill what's coming down the pipeline.
Right.
Than
And
you
like in a text form. I mean, I find that's a lot easier. It comes through quicker.
Right.
It's just cleaner, easier
Right.
to open and listen
So
to.
we have that. That's rolling out as well.
right.
Those are the two big ones. I'm trying to think.
Just like a weekly update or something.
Weekly update. So I think we should do. We're still kind of troubleshooting it. If it not the technology, but like how often, because you don't want to be annoying, right?
I think weekly is great. It's
Weekly.
Considering the market we're in right now and where interest rates are and what's happening.
My thought is once a week to realtors and once a week to all clients, past clients, and leads, just with a quick update on stuff that's happening in the market. So so like I look at my realtor partners as my partners. So the messaging to y'all is going to be a little bit different than the messaging to clients, contacts, leads, things of that nature.
Sure.
Okay.
So customize once a week to realtors, customize once a week to clients, and I think that's enough. But we also
makes
are
sense.
supposed to reach out between every 7 and 10 days and just kind of get on the phone and say, hey, did you get this? Did you see this? This is what we're doing. We're not supposed to call and not provide value. We always try to provide some type of value.
Yeah, absolutely.
So every conversation that I've had with my realtor partners, I try to add something that maybe you don't know. I'm trying to just come up with a concept here of how do we keep our realtors updated on what it is that we can do, because we can do everything from commercial to residential to capital raises. Like, how do you update people on that so that you're front of mind with them?
Yeah.
quick video.
Quick video.
I think that's perfect.
And I don't pretend to be the expert on that side
Which
of
is good.
things.
Which is good.
So, but we have to have enough knowledge to give you the overview to say, hey, this might be an option for your goals, and then
Right.
I'm going to hand you over to you guys and take it from there. So,
Okay, it
but
looks like-
knowing that those are options and staying, forefront of mind is where we have to be right now. Like, that's how we get repeat business, is
Oh, yeah.
staying in touch with our clients and providing that value consistently, because who's going to be top of mind? It's going to be the agent and the loan officer who's giving you that provided value that you're like, oh, when I think of real estate, when I think of lending, I'm thinking, of you
Right.
guys.
That's really cool. So I have a meeting that I have to
Yes,
get to, and
no.
I'm not sure what time it is because we don't.
Oh,
we're
y'all
like-
went an hour and a half. It didn't feel like that, did it?
No, that was quick.
No, I did not.
Well, I appreciate y'all for joining us. Tell everybody where they can find you, your social media handles, social media, in person. How did you want them to find y'all?
My Instagram is at Treva Hicks _ rooted in real estate.
Cool.
And we have a YouTube channel. It's CEOs of Real Estate.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, thanks for having us. This was really fun. And you can find me. My handle is Mel Sells Charlotte, CLT. And we're both with Keller Williams Connected, and we cover North and South Carolina. So we're here to serve you in both those areas.
Awesome. And to everybody who watched, thank you. For everybody who's going to watch the clips, thank you. We really appreciate you all. Reach out to them. They know what they're doing. Investment properties, primary residence, first-time home buyers, land, commercial, anything real estate, they're your people. I'm Mortgage Man Nick, MTG Man Nick, on all my social media, and MBI Financial Group. Bang the red subscribe button, turn on notifications. Thank you for joining us. We're out. Peace.
Peace. Peace.
That's my little thing. I say peace at the end.
Woo.